The Way We Was is the first proper flashback episode of The Simpsons, and this is a really interesting episode because we finally, a little bit way into the second season, we finally get to learn about Marge and Homer when they were younger and how they got together. And I find this quite delightful. In general, I will be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of flashback episodes because I just find them not that engaging and not that interesting, particularly when there's an absence of Bart and Lisa. But this episode I actually find to be quite nice. This is, as I said, in the second season. It's episode 12, directed by David Silverman, and this aired originally in January 1991. And the television breaks, and Homer and Marge decide to take this opportunity to tell Bart and Lisa, and I guess Maggie, about how their parents met. And it's all about how they fell in love at school. I won't obviously tell you how they met, I don't want to spoil it for you. But they have a very interesting story. It's not just a case of meeting each other, deciding to go on a date, and falling in love. It's quite a complex history. And there's at least one instance where if one of them made just a slight decision, a slightly different decision, their own histories would be rewritten. Well, their histories as we know it now, of course. I have to say, the animation is brilliant. There are various characters. Barney, for example, Barney is in this, and he's got a full head of hair, and he's really quite cute. Homer also has a full head of hair. Let's note that. Marge has wonderful hair. It's long, but it's still blue. They've done a really good job of making these characters obviously very recognizable, but looking a lot younger, without actually changing too much about them. Even Marge's hair, there's a moment where she pins it up. Even though it's up, it still looks more youthful. They've done a really good job with the animation and the regression. I think it's a lot of fun. It's very sweet in terms of how it's edited. In the amount of times it cuts back to Bart and Lisa and Homer and Marge in present day, I think is sufficient. It works very well. There are various similar cartoons or TV shows that do regression stories where they basically only show the present day at the very beginning and the very end, and you kind of forget you're watching a narrative within a narrative. But this one, I think they've handled it very well. It's very funny, it's very sweet. As I said, not normally a fan of flashback stories, so the fact that I actually really quite enjoyed this one definitely is something that works in its favour from my perspective. It's a little bit cheesy in parts, but I think it works really well. The Way We Was is never going to be one of my favourite episodes. It's just how it is. But I did thoroughly enjoy it, and if for whatever reason you haven't seen this episode of The Simpsons yet, or if you haven't seen it in a long time, definitely give it a watch or a rewatch. It's really quite delightful.